Hey guys, Like Butter here. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, I've been an OG fan of The Division ever since the 2013 trailer aired. I was very heavily into a game called DayZ at the time, and I thought this was going to be Ubisoft's attempt at an open world survival game. I kept up with The Division news until the release in 2016. I started posting content and my channel doubled in size. I was making a large amount of Dark Zone videos and even had a few videos near 1 million views. Even though The Division wasn't a survival game, I learned the ins and outs of this looter shooter and learned to appreciate the Dark Zone. It eventually became one of my favorite pieces of content from any video game I have ever played. The chill up your spine as you get that gold rarity drop, knowing that you have to extract that and it could be stolen by another player at any time. That kind of feeling is what I loved about DayZ. Over the years, the Dark Zone kind of shifted. It went from an open world feeling experience to eventually an all-out brawl, which is what I ended up liking the most. Having your team fight successfully against an entire server was one of the best feelings in gaming. To know that you put your build, communication, and skill to the test against so many other players at once made for an amazing experience that was hard to replicate. This huge battle of PvP is what eventually fueled the popularity of the game moving forward. All of these crazy moments are why there are still a large portion of people playing the Division 1 today. Those people don't need gear or builds. They already have everything, yet they still find themselves logging in to the Division 1 every single day just to fight in this gigantic bloodbath. The Division 1 Dark Zone was made up of 24 players, so when DZ 7-9 was added, it kind of spread the players out too much. Eventually, these giant battles would happen down in the South DZs once people already had their builds put together. The fun then became how good you could get at PvP, or what tweaks you could make to your build to make you as strong as possible. So the Dark Zone shifted from this open world experience into this PvP Royal Rumble. The atmosphere in the DZ was amazing, but atmosphere isn't what keeps people around for thousands of hours. It's the gameplay loops that always keep you coming back. The threat of these players and all the PvP the DZ had also made solo players who wanted good gear very satisfied when they could sneak around these large packs of players in manhunts. It made the game exciting not only for the people participating in PvP, but also the people who aren't. The Dark Zone became this big event that everyone talked about and discussed how well their builds held up in. This ongoing battle is what eventually became the ultimate test for your build. It was loads of fun and created a whole other layer to the game than making builds and PvEing. The special part of the Dark Zone in the Division 1 was that people were all there for different reasons. But there was no doubt that this activity was known as the most hardcore area. It was brutal, unforgiving, and unfair, but the rewards were good, very good. You felt rewarded when you went into the Dark Zone to farm. This loot made for even more intense PvP since when you got something good, you were really worried about getting that out. In December 2018, I was sent out to play the Division 2 3 months before it released. I got to sit down with some developers and talk to them about the new Dark Zone that I played. We sat down in this presentation room and we got explained to that we weren't just getting one Dark Zone, we were getting 3 Dark Zones. I was pretty ecstatic with this excitement because in my mind, I thought this meant more options. When we saw how small the Dark Zones were, I was actually at first pretty excited because I thought that they were going to make these zones into PvP arenas that the Division 1 eventually turned into, but without the people running from DZ1 all the way up to DZ9. I think some of my best moments of the Division 1 were when the beta, if you remember, it was only DZ1 and 2, and it locked 24 players into those 2 small zones. It was absolute madness. When you went manhunt in those zones, you would feel the entire server coming and hunting you down. It was absolutely amazing. So I was thinking these smaller Dark Zones were going to be kind of like the beta was in Division 1. After playing in the DZ, I sat down with the creative director and talked to him about the Dark Zone. He was really interested with what I had to say since I was a pretty big player in the first game with over 3,000 hours across all my accounts. I told him that I was worried about the player count. Some of the best content in the Division 1 was when the server battles and the ripple effect that those battles had across the entire Dark Zone. It was madness. You never knew what to expect. He told me, word for word, although I'm sure that makes for good content, the server battles aren't something we had good feedback on. I told him I was positive that 12 players wouldn't be enough, and he said that nothing is off the table, everything is subject to change. The game came out 3 months later, and guess what? The number one feedback about the DZ was that there was not enough players. It feels empty. It feels dead. Even when there is a full lobby of 12 players, it just doesn't feel the same. Even with the small and caged Dark Zones, 12 players just feels bleh. It's 3 squads of 4, which means if you are playing with a full group, you are fighting against the same 2 teams over and over until one of those teams leaves. Then you are in a 4v4 deathmatch, which already exists, by the way. That battle was gone, and the game suffered for it. The Dark Zone, without a doubt, was the biggest letdown of the entire game. The level design in the DZ is actually quite cool. There's definitely a lack of events, and loot isn't as exciting as it was in Division 1, but those are coming with God Rolls making a return and the loot overhaul that we're about to see with the newly announced surprise NYC expansion, Warlords of New York. I'm excited because there's finally hype coming back to the Division 2. People are starting to talk about it again, and I was really hoping for a new 24-player Dark Zone in New York City, but the devs said that they didn't have time to make a new Dark Zone. It's not surprising that the DZ was once again put on the back burner. This is because only a small percentage of their player base cares about the Dark Zone. The reason that is because the DZ is lacking that feeling that it had in the first game. It's not what it was, but there was hope. The devs announced that there are going to be reworks to the DZs in Washington, D.C. This brings us to where we are right now. A lot of the changes that they talked about are extremely positive and will bring a lot of the OG feelings back to the Dark Zone. This includes a faster rogue toggle, VoIP on by default, better loot drops, exclusive DZ only gear, and even some vibe changes like bringing Isaac's voice back when entering the Dark Zone. The one thing we all waited to hear was the DZ player increase. Something that the DZ community has been asking for since 2018. This is what the developers said on State of the Game.
I saw a comment as well about, hey, what's the player count? Mm-hmm. So it's 12. So we actually looked into raising the player count to 16. But players probably recall as well that one of the things we did, I think last update, was we basically made sure that you could always get into a full Dark Zone, right? So you would sometimes see a load screen if the Dark Zone you're in wasn't full enough, and we make sure that that you're always in a full Dark Zone. So we basically we tested a lot internally. We looked at increasing it, and actually we found that the play experience was best at 12. Interestingly, when we made that change to get enough people in there, like once you got too many people, it just kind of turned into this like PvP Slugfest because there were so many people there. Instead of the kind of mystery of the Dark Zone and like, you know, the fantasy of being like this lone wolf in the Dark Zone kind of disappeared in that chaos. So, but it's obviously something that we can monitor, and we can also look into if there's going to be a desire for that in the future.
Yeah.
Cool.
What actually blows my mind is how backwards this statement is. They said they are going to stop trying to make the DZ for the people who don't go into the DZ and make it for the people who do.
What we covered yesterday, it's back to kind of philosophically trying to recreate some of the things that people love from the Division 1, so we're getting back to those roots, focusing on player-to-player interactions.
That's right.
We did mention that this is for PvP-ready players.
That's right. And like what that means is there was actually something, I think it actually came from the ETF, and I apologize, I don't remember who said it, maybe you recall. But it was something that kind of like really resonated with us, which is that the Dark Zone is for the wolves, not the sheep. And like what that really means, right, is that the Dark Zone is for people who are ready to take on the challenge of another player. It doesn't mean they're looking to challenge another player, but it means they're ready.
Yeah.
So what we don't want to do is we don't want to draw in players who don't want that experience into the Dark Zone, because we wanted to create so many other things for those players to do that the Dark Zone doesn't have to be one of those places.
Yeah.
Right? So if you are a player that is okay with running into other players and kind of the lawlessness of the Dark Zone, then awesome. Go to the Dark Zone. We are making that Dark Zone experience for those players.
Yeah.
We're no longer trying to make a Dark Zone that appeals to everyone.
Yes.
It appeals to those players.
Yeah.
The people who have been playing in the DZ have been asking for a player increase since launch. This isn't an exaggeration. It has been an overwhelmingly large piece of feedback that players have been begging for. Now, what really blows my mind is what he says is exactly what people have been wanting. It turned into a quote-unquote PvP Slugfest. The exact thing that the DZ turned into in the Division 1 that everyone loved.
You are a player that is okay with running into other players and kind of the lawlessness of the Dark Zone, then awesome. Go to the Dark Zone. We are making that Dark Zone experience for those players.
Yeah.
Like, once you got too many people, it just kind of turned into this, like, PvP slugfest because there were so many people there in that chaos. So, but it's obviously something that we can monitor, and we can also look into if there's going to be a desire for that in the future.
Yeah.
So I had to go off script a little bit here because I'm just so blown away watching this back that I really don't even know like what to say. They are saying they're making the Dark Zone for these players who are ready for PvP. And these players that have been in the Dark Zone have been asking for a player increase for a year. So there's no feedback to gain. You've been getting the feedback for an entire year. Like, I don't understand how they can be this misled and this confused and this clueless as to what the feedback has been. You see the feedback all the time. I read it in my chat all the time. When are they going to increase the player count? I've had friends on other video games that don't play the Division 2 anymore that say that they stopped playing because there were no more server battles. The people that we talked to in the Division 1, last Friday when we went to the Dark Zone, they said the reason they don't play the Division 2 is because they don't have the server battles. So what feedback do you need? I don't know if there's like a transition going on here where Massive has control of the Dark Zone, considering Red Storm has been completely silent for months and hasn't said anything. I'm assuming Massive has control of the Dark Zone now, so I'm not sure if there's like a disconnect there where they haven't been listening to all this feedback. So I'm going to let you guys know, Massive, if you guys are in control of the Dark Zone now and you guys have this feedback has been overwhelming since launch. Please listen. The Dark Zone has been pushed into the corners of the map. There are so many PvE activities around the map that are great and give you amazing rewards. Stepping into the DZ to get good gear isn't necessary anymore. There is an opportunity all over the map to get any of the gear that you want. With the next update, they are even making more options for the open world so that you can turn up the difficulty of the roaming NPCs and checkpoints, etc. Hamish even said on State of the Game that this is kind of like a PvE Dark Zone.
Everything.
You can reply them to the entire world.
Exactly.
The interesting thing here is I think for some people that have been maybe in that crowd that's asking for like a PvE Dark Zone, this really is kind of, you get this. If you could treat it like it's one gigantic, super long mission.
So let me ask you this. If there are so many options for PvE only players in the game, why can't the DZ be that PvP Slugfest? What's even more bizarre is that they said they want the DZ to be more PvP oriented. The whole point of the DZ overhaul is to cut down on the farming and up the rewards and incentive to PvP. I don't understand how the developers can be this disconnected from their community. The exact thing we've been asking for was tested, and it turned out exactly how we wanted. And it's talked about like it's a bad thing. I really don't get it. The only people who will ever be against the DZ player count increasing is PvE farmers who already have 95% of the map, 6 new story missions, an entire new city coming that is going to include new checkpoints, new incentives, new open world activities, tons of new main missions. So why listen to those people over the hardcore PvP community that have been begging for this for an entire year? Why not just throw this on the PTS and let us test it out? Let us be the ones to decide that the experience is better with either 12 or 16 people. What they seem to not realize is that there is a big difference between testing 16 players at the studio than it is at live servers. In live servers, you don't know what you're going to get. Some people could be AFK, some people could be in the checkpoints sorting their gear, some might just be in the corner of the map doing nothing at all. When you are paying 16 employees that are paid to be sitting in a room and actively playing, of course it's going to be a slugfest. You're in a full server with everyone playing. This slugfest is what we've been wanting from the beginning. There has to be another layer here. They can't possibly be this deaf to feedback. I leave you with this hilarious meme that a friend of mine, Hypnotics, made on Twitter. It's actually so good and literally explains exactly what happened.
Y me llama el cocinero. Risita, ¿qué? Ve por la paellera. Venga, que las 2 de la tarde ya están aquí. Miren, bañador. En las chanclas. Todo despeinado porque no me dio tiempo nada ponerme las chanclas y el bañador. Voy a la playa, había subido la marea. Había subido la marea y encontré una paella. Y la encontré porque estaba la paellera agarrada, metida entre las piedras de Chipiona, del faro. Y cuando entro en el restaurante me ve el cocinero con una paellera y adentro la vende paellera. ¡Asómate, mira dónde llega el agua! Llegaba el agua hasta el restaurante. Había subido la marea. Jesús, hay que hacer ahora con los 2 sacos de arroz.
I love the Division 2, and it is honestly better than it's ever been. I've been back playing for about a week, and I can honestly recommend it. There are new deals going on now where you can get the base game for just $3, and then the paid DLC, which is going to come out next month, is an extra $30. And honestly, with all of the content they've showed, it really does seem like it's going to be worth the $30. So please, with all of these new activities that PvEers are getting, can we please just have the Dark Zone be madness? Let it just be absolute chaos. That's what made the Dark Zone so special to so many people in the Division 1. You don't need to be having that feeling of PvEing in the Dark Zone anymore. Like, that feeling of being a quote-unquote lone wolf has been gone when they created small little compact DZs anyways. All you're doing by not increasing the player count is punishing those people who do want that gameplay. Let it be a lawless, crazy environment where anything goes. Anyways, I think Division 2 has a bright future, and I really hope the devs listen. Be sure to share around this video if you agree, drop a like, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care, everybody.